So one of the common things I see with people with back pain is that they'll get their core strong, but they don't get to that second level where their core is able to react and produce quick forces to stabilize against external forces. And this comes from, patients that, they're just walking their dog and their dog pulls them somewhere and then their back goes out. I had another patient. He was carrying a 2x4 doing some projects at home, and he was doing it with a buddy, and his buddy thought it'd be funny to kind of pull the 2x4 to kind of scare him, and it threw his back out for 3 weeks. So it's the ability to contract your core quickly so that it can stabilize, either so that you can create a force to do something or create a force to react. As a dad, my kids are a constant reactive force training. They're constantly jumping on me. So if you don't have that spine stability, being a parent's going to be pretty painful. And Stuart McGill is one of the big proponents of this. He's done a lot of research on this, and he finds, especially with athletes, this is true. Boxers, if you stay rigid the whole time, and you're really tight and you throw a punch, you can't be quick. And on the opposite end of the continuum, if you're loose the whole time, you'll be quick, but the punch won't have any force. So it's more about being able to have some tension, being able to throw the punch quickly loose, and then tighten and get that pulse core contraction right at impact. You also see this in racket sports and golf. If you're swinging a golf club, you need some core stability to swing. You need to get it fast, so you need to be loose. And then right at contact, you need to tighten up and pulse the core so you can contract the ball. So it needs to be able to turn on and off quickly. Tennis is one where you can really see this differentiation between controlling your core and being able to create the pulses and not. Beginner will stiffen up and they're just going to move their whole body and it looks very stiff. And the ball control is not going to be as good. Where if you watch somebody like Roger Federer, part of the beauty and the grace of him is that he's just so smooth, and then he contracts and pulses his core really tightly to carry through at the impact. So one of the common habits of people with back pain is that they'll over contract and over stiffen their muscles to protect their back. And this habit of just contracting and stiffening your muscles will prevent blood flow. When muscles are contracted, the blood flow can't get through. And then when you can't get blood flow, the nerves get angry, and then you get further nerve impulses going up telling your brain that you're in danger. And then also when you're stiff, joints don't move, and joints need to move. So while that stiffness might be temporarily protective in an acute low back pain, the long-term effects are not good. I often see this with my patients that come in with chronic back pain. Some of them will be very good at being able to contract and be able to stiffen, but they're not good at being able to let go of that contraction to a certain degree. They're not able to control the intensity of the contraction. So in other words, it's either they're in fifth gear contracting their core and everything, bracing as hard as they can, or the car is not even on. I think for proper mechanics and optimal movement, you need to be able to go through different levels of core contraction like it's a continuum. So I think there's really two levels of core training. So I think the first level is just being able to contract it. Some people just can't volitionally contract their abdominals or their core muscles or their glutes. Or they use substitutions. They'll use different muscles to try to contract it. So you need to have that level done. And then that second level, I think, is working on these reactive pulse core contractions. And there's a ton of exercises you can use. And it's, depending on whether you're just an average dad like me or if you're a high-level athlete, there's going to be a big continuum of exercises. So I did throw a bunch of my exercises on this channel into a playlist that kind of work on this reactive core, so you can look at that as a menu and I would add some of them into your program. And I think adding those in will not only teach your body to be able to contract with those pulses, but it will also teach you to let go and relax, which is just as important. And there's a decent amount of research to back all this up, along with a ton of anecdotal evidence. So that's an area that I think people with chronic back pain are missing. I think they often are too stiff and too hypertonic, and they're not able to use that full continuum of muscle contractions. This is why I think it's important for people with back pain to train their core so that it can react or predict to pulse and contract and then let go. This isn't to say, of course, this is the magic solution for back pain. Back pain is extremely complex. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so prevalent, is that people are often selling magic bullets, and it's usually an amalgamation of things that work. Whether you're just looking to train your core and be a better athlete, or if you're looking to get out of and stay out of back pain, I think adding this reactive and pulsed on-off core contractions will help protect your back and make you move better.